This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Houghton, the president of the Georgia Association of Broadcasters, and we welcome the people that are in our room and more important, and also the people that are online to this presentation today. It's our third stop of 4 to discuss digital marketing and political. I have heard just literally in the last couple of days that political has picked up a little bit, that some of that last minute inventory has come your way, and I hope that's the case for those of you who are here. And but this presentation today is about digital and it's about political, and we're just trying to find something in the form of political that you can kind of wrap your arms around instead of having to pick something from your own station to get it done. But we're very excited about the prospects of digital. We have an excellent first speaker who really understands what's going on with digital. Amanda Bright is a professor at the University of Georgia, but she's got her ink on her finger still that she can't get off from her many years in newspaper, and we're very happy to have her here today. But most importantly, there's an expression that most people in sales have heard, that Wayne Gretzky said he was a great hockey player because he didn't go where the puck was, but where the puck was going. And the puck in our industry is digital, and it's going to the point of 70% of the business that used to come to broadcasters is now going somewhere else. We don't want to see it become 75%. We don't want to see it become 71%. We want to see it go the other way. And digital is a big, big mountain. I used to say a rock, but it's a very big entity, and it's very frightening until you try to break it down into smaller pieces. And that's what Amanda has done very, very well in this presentation. We're excited. We think that there's a future here for all of us. It isn't an easy solution, but I think it's a solution that if we just take one small piece like political and try to grow from there into other aspects of your stations, you'll understand it a little bit better. So I've started to introduce Amanda. I'm going to bring her up in just a second. She's become somebody that I really respect and appreciate a great deal. And she's got a story to tell about how digital is affecting the world, and specifically the media, in the media aspect of it. So I'm going to bring her up and let her tell you a little bit about digital, and then we'll bring in some active broadcasters to tell their success stories with what they're doing here after that. Thank you. Amanda?
Hey, everybody. What's going on?
Uh-oh, I'm going to go get a charger.
Garrett's going to push some buttons, I guess. That's good. How many people do we have online?
Got a handful of folks from
Okay.
around the area.
They can talk. They can talk.
We'll be able to talk. I'm going to ask them if they put it in chat during.
Oh, good. Are you going to monitor that then? Will you stop me? Will you stop me? Okay, great. All right. So where are you all from? And where do you work? What do you do? Like, I need to know you always need to know your audience, right? I can't just talk at you. So where are you from? Okay. Okay.
Not here, staying here. I handle all the political, actually.
Oh.
Political stuff here.
You're like the two halves of the whole. Okay,
Absolutely.
that's beautiful. I hope you like each other. All right, good. Oh, well, sometimes you get to talking and it's hard to focus. Okay, all right. What about you? Okay, very nice. Okay, so we got TV, we got radio. Can we hear from the people? Like, do we know like who's with us? Like, I just want to know who I'm talking to.
Flanagan,
There we go.
Becky Flanagan.
They can like.
I think she has her mic going.
Hey Becky, where are you from?
Hi, so I work for Beasley Media Group here in Augusta, and I'm over digital marketing.
Okay, digital marketing here in Augusta for TV. Did you say?
Beasley Media Group, 6 radio stations.
6 radio stations. Now I gotcha. The speaker's a little low. I had to lean in. Okay, thanks, Becky. Okay, Carter, what are you up to?
I am the director of sales for WJBF TV here in Augusta.
Okay, all right, good. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, we're good. Does that cover it? Okay. One of the reasons why it's so important to like know your audience, right? Like, because I don't want to tell you things that you don't need to know. A lot of you are in marketing and sales. I come from the editorial side, but I'm gonna try to make this relevant from a product perspective for you. But let's talk and ask questions, okay? So like if you're online in the chat, Garrett is my friend. Garrett and I are old friends now, and he can stop me and ask questions. But you got just stop me and let's have a conversation here. So I come from a news background. I've had 25 years in journalism, mostly newspapers, but I pivoted to digital. Now I am a professor of journalism at Grady at University of Georgia. I run the Journalism Innovation Lab, which is a place where students just try stuff, right? And we just oh, does this work? I don't know. Does this work? Because we know that we all need to be doing that right now. And I have been doing newspapers and journalism my whole life, but local journalism. That's what I'm most interested in, is smaller markets. Sometimes our students, bless their souls, I think is what you're supposed to say in Georgia, want to go straight to the top, right? They want these big national, they're like, if we're not working for the New York Times, I'm like, you know what you're going to be doing at the New York Times? You're going to be shoveling Facebook content in a corner. You know what you can do in a local market? All the things, right? You can really engage and make a difference. So we're trying to send more of them to you. And let me know if you have job openings. I'm totally a pipeline for students, whether it's in our ad PR program or journalism program. But what I want to talk about, it's going to be a little slow and glitchy. That's cool. It's just some of the data. So I'm a bit of a data nerd. I know this is kind of far away for y'all, so let's see what happens here. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. You could focus on any product or platform, and it'll come into focus hopefully soon. Wow, the lag is epic. That's all right. I'll just make this work. So the thing you need to know about this chart, which is really, really small from where you're at, but I'll just tell you what it says. On the left, where all the dark color is, that's the percentage of people who normally get their content through digital, right? So we're talking right now, at least 2/3 of people consume all their news and information through digital platforms, and that's actually an underestimate. We all know that, right? The next set of bars is TV. The next set of bars is radio, and the far right is print. Yes, print is the saddest. So that's the good news. No one here is in print. I will just cry on my own later tonight. The newest Pew Center research that just came out says 8 in 10 US adults get all of their information on digital platforms. And we know this because we have lives and we breathe, right? We know that it's about convenience. But y'all are selling and communicating through TV and radio. So the question, of course, always is what do we do with digital based on these numbers, right? Because if this is true, then we have to somehow grab both audiences. We don't want to give up our legacy audience, but at the same time, we have to meet them where they're at digitally, right? Okay, preaching to the choir on that one. Two other pieces of information that I think are super interesting coming out of Pew. Number one, there is a huge increase in the number of Americans who value journalists and digital products that have local only content. So we kind of remember we got into that weird national myopic phase where everything was national, right? I mean, there was the last 5-ish years, all we cared about was happening in Washington, D.C. We're pulling back from that, at least our polling is showing us that, and that people are starting to actually care about what happens in their local communities. And they want journalists, they want advertisements that are local. They want local stores, they want local communication, they want local events to be part of how we're communicating with them. That's actually pretty freaking great for us for the first time in a long time. The data is not good for us in a lot of ways, but this is good data. Counterpoint to that is about 1 in 5 US adults say they get their political news from social media. Anyone feel great about that? Anybody? Yeah, I don't either, right? So we want them to get their political information or their local information through trusted vetted sources like our radio stations, like our TV stations, because we have process, we have codes of ethics, we actually check stuff. Unlike my aunt who posts random things on Facebook without a nary a care, right? This is an area for growth. So if we know that this is where they're getting information, part of it is going to that place where they already are and pulling them to the places where they'll get the better information, whether it's through sales and advertising or editorial content, so that we can actually check this stuff and make sure it's good. The other thing I just want to think about, it's coming, it's just a little slow today. I find this to be absolutely captivating when it comes to data. when people think about news organizations, whether it's, and this is entertainment too, you know, for radio, if it's you're a music station, these are the things they want most out of a digital presence. Number one, an easy to use website. They find our websites to be like trickery, right? Pop-up ads, things moving around everywhere, so many navigation buttons that if you want to find what you want to find, it's like, what? Where do I go? I highly recommend, and I'm going to give you like resources for like getting our students involved later, but I highly recommend having lots of people beta test your sites, like regular people in your area, like go through and be like, if you were going to find a story about the local school board, where would you find it? They're going to be like, I don't know, you know, and giving a sense of like, how do they navigate your site? We do a really cool thing. I teach our students how to do something called empathy mapping, where you sit down with a couple of your listeners or viewers, audience members, and you ask them questions like this, and you just watch how they navigate your app, your website, your social media platform. You can find so much out through people like struggling or asking you questions. Sometimes they'll try to cheat. Like, you're not supposed to tell them answers. You're supposed to let them constructively struggle. But often what will happen is they'll be like, please show me. Like, where am I supposed to go for this, right? Or like, how do I click this? And it really can help with that ease of digital use. Number two thing they want, a schedule of local events. And this is something that we can monetize. I am really a big fan of the not subscriber, sponsor model. So like ads, we have to change all the time, right? We have to constantly like, oh, they want to move the picture to this side, or they want to highlight this thing. And sometimes they can be poorly designed and poorly executed. If you can get just their logo, something real clean, and say, hey, they sponsored this local news calendar where you can figure out what you're supposed to do this weekend, or all the cool things in Augusta that are going on right now. Or part of an email newsletter, right, that wraps that up. A sponsorship is something that's low maintenance for your ad sales team, but has a nice digital benefit. So I think moving more towards that rather than the pay for play model with direct advertising or display advertising, maybe something that we're seeing nonprofit journalism do that a lot. So people like Texas Tribune, they are moving towards a membership sponsorship model, and they're only digital, and they're having tremendous success with that. The third thing they look for, regularly updated social media accounts. What regularly updated means, of course, means lots of things to lots of people. I had some students work with, it was WTOC in Savannah, and the first thing they said is you're posting too often on Instagram, because as an Instagram user, you don't want posts every day. You want one or two quality posts, maybe tops, but you don't want your feed flooded. Facebook is different. Twitter is completely different. You could flood that thing all day long. It doesn't matter, right? So thinking about platforms in kind of specific ways, being able to customize the news you get, whether that's geofencing or something else, geolocation, videos. So my radio friends, we're just going to have to get into video. And we know it. Okay, we know it. She's like, I know. Okay. And then the last one is the ability to comment on stories. I want to have a little caveat here. I don't really believe in like free-for-all Wild West comment sections. I don't think those benefit anyone, right? Like everyone like loses morale, like as a human being from those. But I think what we're finding in some of the news organizations I work with is that if you do create someone, it can be on your sales and marketing team or editorial side, who responds to the comments and questions that are valid and redirects them to other products or sources that you have, that can be building a relationship tool that is incredibly important. But it's got to be very thoughtful and direct, right? Because it's easy to get in the mire on that stuff. So when I break down products, when it comes to digital, I like to think of them in three like buckets. That helps me. The first one are like organic products. This is your website, this is your app, possibly an email newsletter. Some of you are doing texting campaigns or things where you actually directly communicate with people. That's got an oddly checkered track record. We can always talk about that more, about whether people like how intrusive that is, but you're already showing up on the lock screen of their smartphone, right? So that is as intrusive as it gets, probably. All of these types of products are ones that you can directly monetize and control. So we like to think of these as like our grade A. Like, if you're going to do a digital product, invest a lot of time, these you can monetize, these you can fully control yourself, and they're beneficial, hopefully, to delivering information. The second one, because when people say digital, they always think social, right? But that's actually the second bucket, And your social media products are basically the ones that you can't control and you can't really monetize well without like lots and lots of effort and mixed track result. Do any of you monetize social? And how does it go? Is it okay?
It's hit or miss, it depends on what the content is or
Right.
the sponsorship or, we have to be very selective with what we see working and what we don't. Kind of push it to the side if we know it's not going to get any.
Exactly. So like you said, it's unpredictable and it's highly reactive, right? That's like a bad dog, you know, like you're like, he's going to bark at everything, you know, I don't know, or he's going to bark at nothing. Social is something that we're trying to, I think, as news organizations pull away from because we understand all of those things. And also reputationally, it's problematic because we know that so much is, I mean, for goodness sakes, what just went on with Zuckerberg, right? And now what's going on with Twitter, with Elon, like, it's just a couple of guys controlling the universe, and that is very unstable. These I see as gateway drugs. They can get us to the good stuff, right? But we don't want to just stay there. That's a horrible metaphor. I should never use that again. I'm gonna strike that from future presentations. Okay. I don't know about your life, Bill, but I'm worried about you. We have to make some phone calls. The third bucket is auxiliary digital products. These are your experimental ones where you create the content. They're monetizable, but typically you're not like running the infrastructure on the back end. So podcasts and digital audio, digital or streaming events, smart speaker skills. Some people actually put out print, woo, publications occasionally. So these are things where you're maybe outsourcing some of it, but you can still retain digital control. These are the ones that actually have the most growth, right? Everyone gets websites and apps and email newsletters are like decently ubiquitous now. These are the things that probably have the most potential for growth for both sales, for local and political, but also have the most risk because they're untried. And the market for these products, guess what the demographic is mostly for these kind of things? Who does these? Anyone? Yeah, Garrett?
I mean, I do podcasts.
Yeah, it's you.
Yeah.
So you're the market, Garrett. It's millennials and below, right? Like, but it's younger people, and younger people are fickle as audience members. They're not a reliable stream source of income, right? They kind of come and go. So you want to invest in these, but you want to invest in them in like a targeted way, right? When it comes to that. So I say all that to be like, okay, so here's our audience. Does this sound like your audiences? Am I missing anything that you're seeing? You're just a wonderful audience. I like you best. So we know that digital is where people are and that they're decreasing on our legacy platforms. We know the kinds of things they want from us, which we may or may not want to give, right? But we know the types of products that we can invest in based on that. So our big thing with our students, and I'm going to get to how I can kind of help you, is to try to think about both and. So when my students come in to the journalism program, they immediately want to go all digital all the time. And I say, hold your horses. That's not making any real money yet, like not to the bulk of paying people salaries. We don't ever abandon legacy platforms for lots of reasons, but we want to think about how we can make them work together. So I do this in two ways. So one is we have a Grady News Source is our live at 5 broadcast. We also have tons of audio. We just opened a podcast studio, so I'm excited about that. Just for News Source, and we cover 6 counties in Northeast Georgia. So our students spend the entire semester doing storytelling for, well, everything. So they do, including TikTok. We do TikTok. We do special shows. We do Instagram stories only shows. We do email newsletters. We do app push notifications, right? Everything. We do that because we're a learning lab, because we want the students to touch everything, to try stuff with a net and like to go, oh, this is cool. I'm going to bring this to my future job, or no, this tanked, right? But I never recommend that anyone do that, like any news organization. And like my thesis statement for all of today is probably don't do too much, do fewer things well. And I think there are people at the top who want us to do all the things, And I think we should not do all the things because I think we tend to not do as well when we spread ourselves too thin. The counterbalance to this is that we just started 6 months ago. We took over this. It's the Oglethorpe Echo. The entire county has 15,000 people in it. And we, one of our students, one of our capstone sections actually does all the editorial work for this now. Because it was going to close and we said, no, we don't like that. And so then we ended up, and of course, when you say you don't like something, you inherit it, right? That's how that works. We not only put out the print product every week, but we have 4 digital platforms. And we're really kind of thinking about strategically pulling back out of, say, Twitter right now, because our audience, 15,000 people in Oglethorpe County they're not on Twitter. They're like, she's like really into Twitter. Like that's about it, right? Or like the political people, like they're into Twitter. But that demographic is not our demographic. And so we're like, why are we on this platform? We need to pull off of it and like concentrate our things elsewhere. We're seeing tremendous growth in our email newsletter. People love the fact that they can go get the paper, but they like on Saturday mornings being able to get like a roundup of like the best or most impactful stories, embedded video in those, and then be able to access the website if they want to know more. We talk a lot in the Echo about the theory of skimmers, swimmers, and divers. I don't know if you've ever heard that from either an ad perspective or an editorial perspective before. So like most people are skimmers, right? They read only the headlines. This is why they're so misinformed. That's about 75 to 80% of our readership, of our audiences for any platform. Some people will swim. They'll actually get in the water, like up to their neck, and they'll walk around and do a couple things, and then they're like, and I'm out, right? Like they'll click on one thing. That'll be it. Then there's the divers. These are the people who read Atlantic articles on Sunday morning, right, with a cup of coffee on their veranda. Like, who's got that time? But whatever. They exist. The divers will dive, and they will spend lots of time. The reason I bring this up is because what we've come to find out with the Echo is that we need to make sure that we are organizing all of our digital products for that almost inverted pyramid look. So the stuff we put at the top will most likely enhance or entice skimmers. Then we'll get a swimmer down here and then a diver down at the bottom, right? A lot of times what we do is we put long, lengthy things at the top, or we put things that are really like because the divers will stay anyway, but you've got to get the skimmers at the top of your digital products, whether it's your website, whether it's your email newsletter, whatever it is. The way this comes to fruition, one of my former students, I don't know if she recognizes me. One of the things ways this comes to fruition is in thinking about what products you use, but also thinking about how you structure them. So we're always kind of talking about those things, and the Oglethorpe Echo is a bit of a success story for us because it is so small. So I don't know in your radio station group if you have one that's a little bit tiny.
Yeah, they're all small.
They're all small. We have, just by concentrating as much as we could on doing local coverage, we have doubled our subscriptions and quadrupled our ad revenue in the last 9 months. And I think it's because we just show up all the time, and it's all local. Like we do nothing outside of the borders of our county. And people have stopped us on a regular basis and said, thank you for not running AP. Thank you for not doing that Facebook post where like there's a terrible car crash and it makes it look like it's in our area, and then we click through and it's in Colorado, right? That gets us page views, but it tends to demystify the audience in a negative way. So we've tried to really double down both on political coverage. We have covered our local school board race within an inch of its life. And they have run ads with us because of it, like continually. And then we try to do like really hyper local storytelling to the point where we are finding stories that people who've lived in the county for 50 years are like, are you kidding me? I had no idea that was there, right? Just as much as possible. And we're finding a lot of growth based on that, which is exciting. That's zoomed in. Okay. I think you probably already know this because a lot of you are in sales. Our goal with digital content is to become part of someone's routine. Like if they don't see a post from you, if they don't get a push alert, if they don't get that email newsletter, if they don't see that audio or that podcast, that's weird to them because it's part of their day. As soon as we become part of someone's routine, we develop loyalty, which then builds community, which then builds advocacy, right? And then they tell others about us. So what we're finding through all the news organizations I'm working with right now is that the more local you are, the more that people build a connection with you personally, right? And we have personalities in radio and TV, even in a way that print doesn't. Print like lacks personality, bless its soul, right? Like I understand, but people that we can actually connect to, that unique value proposition of hyper local stuff, or taking a national thing and making it local, we're just seeing insane dividends based on that. Plus, paired with an extensive engaged community calendar, community awareness, right, in that way, that we are the bastion, because a lot of newspapers have died in areas or are shrinking, right, they're atrophying, of what's happening in that way. So what's cool about digital is that we can become part of someone's routine in a way that our legacy products can't. You know, the window for listening to radio is shrinking for lots of reasons, because of competitors, but also because of the way people work from home so much now, right? There's not as much car time, things like that. And the window for TV is the same way, because people have gotten used to everything being on demand, right? Everything is OTT, like everything is when I want to listen to it. Digital is that, like, right? So that's the beauty of it. And I think the more that we think about, okay, so how do we tell these hyperlocal stories on these digital platforms, the more we're going to build that kind of audience. So again, I'm probably preaching to the choir, so let's move forward to like what really matters. Here's what I think we need to start doing based on the news organizations I'm working with. Either 2/3 or 80-20. I can't decide on my ratios right now. The amount of content, whether it's sales or coverage, that we do on our legacy, and we focus on our stuff that's working versus the stuff that we try that's new. I never think we should put all the eggs in the new basket. But if you look at, this is from Reuters digital political report, or digital report, excuse me, for 2021. It's about a 2/3 mentality. 67% are saying, I'm going to improve my current products, but then 32% of our time, we're going to be launching new products or extensions. And that's kind of part of what I think gets us into hot water. So if we think about, I'm going to spend 2/3 or 20% of my time playing with new digital products and trying to reach new audiences. I think what ends up happening is we go, we need Instagram Reels, or we need a TikTok, or we need a new email newsletter, right? Or something. And then we don't really think about like what we're doing beyond that. I think sometimes we get the cart in front of the horse. I know like my students and some of the news organizations I work with, they launch products way too fast without thinking about something. So we have a training regimen that we teach our students who work with news organizations. We call it PAM. And I think of Pam from The Office. Does that resonate with anybody? Is it just me? Okay, good. All right, so purpose, audience, and message. The questions that are on here, and Garrett has the link to this, he can send to everybody. But if you want it later, but like, who are we as an organization? What do we actually want to achieve? And what makes us unique compared to others in the market? Like sometimes we haven't done that. Like, sure, we do our strategic plans, right? But that's not necessarily at the levels where we're all working. We need to be like, okay, who are we? What are we doing here? What makes us different? Get a sense of that. And then really try to understand our audience. So like, what is resonating best? I'm sure y'all look at analytics, right? What's the drawback of analytics? Like, what do you not like about looking at your numbers? Or maybe you just don't like looking at numbers?
Yeah.
That's,
They're being smaller.
yeah, right? Anything else? Yes.
You don't really know what you're looking at or what you're trying to improve. You're just until someone explains to you, hey, we need to work on this. Right? What can we do to fix this?
Yeah. So I have a really like a love-hate relationship. I love analytics, but I don't think they tell me much most days. And I think we have I was in public education for a while. What analytics is to journalism right now is what standardized test scores was to education. We think we can measure everything with a number. I get it that more page views equal better advertise, right? Revenue, like I get that, but that's actually not really true, right? Because just because they landed on your page doesn't mean they saw your ad. Just because they were on your page for 3 minutes doesn't mean they read the whole story. It's very possible they put their phone down to go like put out a grease fire, right? Like in that time, or whatever it is. Analytics are only half the story. What's really important is that we're talking to our audiences at the same time. So in the stupid academic world, right, we call this qualitative research and quantitative research. We have to make sure we marry the two. And if we're not talking to our audiences about what resonates with them, about what those quantitative numbers mean, then we're only getting half the picture. I think analytics do a good job of telling us what demographics we're reaching. But universally, as Bob said, what's true about our demographics? Like, who do we all want to reach more? Say again? Young people. Those pesky young people, Garrett, I'm looking at you. Those pesky young people, right? Who didn't grow up with legacy platforms, who have no, they don't have as much of an emotional tie to the call letters, right, that represent your station. They don't have that built in, although they love Trader Joe's, right? So I mean, like there are things they love. But what does resonate best with them? Sometimes your numbers don't tell you. Sometimes you got to talk. Sometimes you got to bring in a group of young people and be like, all right, so like what is working for you here, and what would you totally just pass by? And understanding that's important before you launch any new digital products. Like I would never ever do it without having some focus groups, or and they could be on Zoom, save some money. You don't have to feed them then. I don't know. Send them an Amazon card. I'm kidding. Do something local. Then the message is the last part. You know, what do you hope your station is known? Like if you were going to like assign an adjective or two to your station, what would that be? Those are the kind of questions where, and just as an aside, I told this, I think at the Gainesville one, my mom was adopting a dog from a shelter and they called for a reference. Yeah, and they said, if you could describe your mom in one word, how would you describe her? And I was like, first of all, is this recorded, right? Because I'm gonna be in trouble. And second, like that was a really hard question. Something that you know so deeply, like it's hard to like just throw a couple adjectives attached to it. But realize that your audiences do that to your products. Like they have feelings and they have adjectives they attach to your products. And it's really important that you know those. By the way, my mom did not end up getting the dog. We did 2 meet and greets with the dog and it did not work out. It's very sad. But my adjective, calling her honest, still stands because she honestly didn't want the dog. So it works. The message is key to drill down on. Who are we? Because that will help you decide your digital products. So if there's one thing that I can tell you, like to pull all the things together that we're going to talk about today, it's that there is not a one size fits all for digital, right? And you know this, but we want there to be we'll just do this and then good thing will happen. It's not like that with our radio stations or our TV station, right? There's no, it just needs this. It is about your specific audience in your specific town with your specific personalities, with your specific content. And you've got to work through this philosophically first before you decide to go, I'm going to really double down on Facebook groups, or I've decided we are going to push into Instagram, or whatever it is. Or we're going to make an email newsletter that's targeted towards just one segment of our population, which, by the way, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is doing with insane positive results right now. The Unapologetically ATL newsletter, which targets young Black residents of Atlanta, is doing, just insane work. And I had a team work to like uncover why it's so successful. And it is for basically 3 reasons. I'll share the research with you. Shh, don't tell anybody. Number 1, I'm kidding, you can tell people, it's all right. Number 1, it targeted a specific segment of the audience, so that audience felt like they were being talked to directly. It wasn't let's throw it out on the digital platforms, or throw it out on the airwaves and whoever it hits, right? It was to this group of people who they really wanted to reach, right? Number 2, it was written in a style and tone and voice that sounded like a real human, not an institution that was saying, trust us, because we have a slogan and some cool stuff on the side of our car, right? It was real, it was authentic, and it was humans talking in first person about things that mattered. And number 3, it didn't just stop at news. It had song recommendations. It had jobs that may be interesting to that group in the area, like job listings. It curated everything under the sun. So it became a one-stop shop for a very specific demographic group they were trying to reach out to. And their conversions from that free newsletter subscription to AJC subscriptions is really nice, right? It doesn't solve the whole problem, but it's an example of them thinking, okay, what is our purpose? Who is our audience that we want to reach? What is our message? Now let's actually do something to reflect that instead of just being so general all the time on all of our products. Okay, that was a new anecdote, right? So you've heard this a couple times. That okay? A little bit trying to make it interesting for the people who travel with me. All right. So once we do that, I'm really systematic in how I do digital platforms and digital thinking. Once we do that, we set very specific SMART goals. I'm sure you've heard that acronym, right? So things like, I'll have to read from here. I can't read that far away. During the next 2 months, we want to increase our Facebook engagement by 5% by focusing on optimizing our existing content that engages well and making a concerted effort to create opportunities for participation and dialogue with our audience for each post in Facebook groups. So this is, I'm going to pull somebody, and for a month, they're going to focus on getting our content into associated Facebook groups and having conversations with people inside of those groups about that content in order to drive people back to our real platforms and then hopefully create some loyalties and some subscribers, some people who, right? Like, so they feel like a connection to us. Super specific goals, right? That are measurable, good stuff. The other one that we recently did with a different client, we will increase the number of younger podcast listeners by 100 subscribers. I like to keep it like, reasonable. By cross-promoting the app on Instagram Reels and TikTok, and promoting the podcast on air at least 5 times a week at specific times when we know that group is listening. Plus, we'll create a campaign to take suggestions for podcast topics through our existing digital products to foster more engagement and opportunities to subscribe. Like super, super, super systematic. I think the reason why you want to do this in this like crazy, like specific digital goal setting is so if you can see if it works, because that's the thing with digital. We were talking about this earlier. A lot of us just keep throwing things up and hoping it sticks. And I feel like we look at the numbers, right? And we go, oh, I don't know, yeah, like a little bit more, it just feels like it's sand running through our fingers with digital products. And so when you have like I'm going to measure this to this for this reason, for this purpose, right? Based on your purpose, audience, and message, you can at least get some feedback either from those audiences qualitatively or quantitatively through analytics that will allow you to go, okay, this is working, or no, let's try a different tact. And I think being systematic about how we make these choices is going to be like the most important thing. So last big researchy thing, again, I'll tell you what these graphs say, because usually we have a bigger screen. So on the left is a graph that shows social platforms. The red line on top is YouTube. It's estimated now that 81% of American adults use YouTube on the daily. Oof. Now, a lot of YouTube videos are embedded in other platforms, right? They're on our website or they're right. So it's not like they're going to YouTube necessarily, but we also know that once you go to YouTube, you get in the black hole of you may also like, and then they abandon us when they're gone, right? So we have to be careful with that. The second one's Facebook, that's 69%. And then we've got Instagram at 40%, Pinterest at 31%. I always think that's interesting. I'm not a Pinterest person, so I feel like that's a subculture I don't know what to do with, but interesting. LinkedIn, Snapchat, Twitter. People always think Twitter is higher. Twitter is not. There's actually 7 people on Twitter, I'm pretty sure, like total, and they all just have lots of accounts. And they're right, and they're all just arguing. Right? WhatsApp, which doesn't particularly, it's not really taken off except for people who usually have international connections here. TikTok, Reddit. Reddit, by the way, if you want to increase your male demographic, Reddit and YouTube are the way to go. Okay, those are primarily, if you're looking for male viewers, that's where they are. My husband says so. And then Nextdoor. I'm kidding, the research says so, but he also agrees. Nextdoor, of course, is dangerous and scary, but it's growing. And it's because of that hyper-local focus. What the reason why Nextdoor is so popular is the reason we need to be even more local. Is because that snake that someone identified, right? Like they're like, what is this? Is this that's what all my Nextdoor is like snake identification. It's because communities, it's neighborhoods. It's so individual that people care about. Do you not know Nextdoor? Explain it, yeah.
It's like
We-
it's a map where everyone in your community within a certain radius where you live are all in a community group together.
And they can post whatever they want. There's no
Yeah.
moderation.
Like,
Digital cul-de-sac.
Oh,
yeah, that's a good
make
one.
a t-shirt. That's so good.
Yeah, that is good.
That's so good. It is, I'll say,
No, it's all yours free. I
Bill
didn't do
Maine.
anything.
oh my gosh, that's good. That's so good. The second one is a big chart, but like the reason this kind of chart is important is because this is at a granular demographic level for where people are at. So again, if you want to get more male viewers, more Hispanic viewers, more viewers in a certain socioeconomic class or a certain educational strata, or they live in the rural versus an urban versus a suburban area, this is where they are. This is where they spend their time on digital channels. And some of these things make sense. Like the 18 to 29 demographic is on Snapchat and TikTok, right? As well as YouTube. And they are on Facebook, just so you know, they just will never post. So they're Facebook lurkers. They will scroll to see what their family's doing, but they rarely post anything. So they're there, but they just don't participate. But this can give us some insight into like how we want to take for our PAM, our current audience circle, and then we want to go like the next ring out, right? We want to get younger viewers, or we want to get more female, or we want to get more different demographics. This gives us a sense of where they're at, which can be really useful. And I find it, interesting for lots of those reasons. The second thing that continues to grow is audio. And I love this because radio stations already do this so well, right? I mean, they're so good at audio. The things that we're seeing the most for growth are quick roundup daily news podcasts. So like you do on air, but I can take it whenever I want to time, not delivered at the top of every hour time. So this is why things like Up First and the Daily, right, these big national ones, we experimented and piloted a Grady News Source daily newscast with an Alexa skill. And it was really fun and easy, right? You just have your talent, somebody like go with the news headlines, a couple little quick sound bites, you edit it together, and then push it out on digital platforms to get people to subscribe and then come back to it on the regular, right? But everyone of almost any demographic we're seeing growth in the daily news podcast. But again, local, right? Not just national, because national news is the same 5 stories every day, like all day long. The second one that we're seeing incredible growth with still are chat interview podcasts. But don't mistake this for being long. So when you're talking about a younger demographic, they want short tidbits unless they want to do a serialized crime podcast, which is a different element, right? So that they will spend hours listening to, but they want something while they're walking the dog, while they're working out, while they're right, that they can just real quick just tap into. This can be really great for conversations for political figures. We find that there's a couple people in Athens that they run very high profile political nonprofits. Any 5 to 7 minute chat with them in a podcast form will go viral. It'll be shared all over the place on every digital platform you can imagine. People love hearing from them. But obviously this works for candidates too. And this works in a lot of different ways. But people like short kind of, I just want to hear from them myself, right? Audio. And then the third most popular right now is serialized podcasts, which you can do if you've got some kind of long form reporter, and then you can sell subscriptions to those or or sponsorships to those. The other thing I just wanted to show you real quick is I find this to be kind of interesting moving forward. So this is from that Reuters digital report. This is a survey of 246 media leaders in 52 countries, okay, for 2022. They say they were going to be putting much less time into Facebook and Twitter. They're moving away from them. And instead, they're going to start putting their efforts into messaging. So like that's direct messaging, whether it's through email, through text, right? Where they're actually directly having conversations with consumers. And then YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as the 3 growth, and then Google as SEO, right? So actually trying to get people to land on us on the web, which is a special kind of craziness, but you can stay up with it and make it happen. Our students do a nice job of working with that. What I will say is that in general, we're seeing less trust in Facebook and Twitter as a source of information and more trust in things like TikTok and YouTube and Instagram, or just a straight Google search, because people feel like they're more authentic and they're less, even though people, they don't understand that Instagram is owned by Zuckerberg too, but that's okay. I don't know if they get that. They feel like they're more interpersonal, right? It feels like someone individual is communicating with me individually, whereas Facebook and Twitter have lost that. They have lost, it feels too big. It's like a behemoth. And so it's all about that direct, personal, local, intentional communication. And that's why these platforms are growing. And that's why I think they're the ones that we can monetize and push out information on. So the other thing I wanted to share with you all is that like this stuff is super hard. I know it is. So, like, it's funny, they did in the same study, they did research and they said, okay, so like, why won't you innovate? Here were the reasons. We don't have the skills to do the thing we want to do. We don't have the resources to do the thing we want to do. And we can't get people to talk to each other across the barriers in our newsrooms, right? Between sales, between the new, the editorial, we can't get people to, in a way that is constructive. Like, yeah, that's always been the case, right? That's always, I don't know how much you've heard the term product thinking, but I think legitimately it's going to revolutionize how we run news organizations moving forward, and just in general, that we break down some of the walls between our little segments and we start talking about how to deliver products to audiences where they are in a way that matters. Now, I have to be careful here because I am a journalism professor and I am a journalist, and I am not about breaking ethical boundaries or barriers or firewalls at all. But you can have a conversation about what you have in common from sales to editorial about your audience in a way that doesn't necessarily sell out something or something. I mean, I think we have to kind of get a little bit more interested in what we're doing in that collective way. So I have 3 specific things that I can do to help. We have a program called Digital Natives that is where we send students to hang out with you for a week in January to address a specific digital goal you have. We do this for TV and radio stations as well as newspapers all across the state of Georgia. So we send out 15 students every January, and they're fun. They're good kids. I only pick the best kids, although they're all good kids. And they research you. They figure out what you need. They will work on a more sales marketing side as well, because I know a lot of sales and marketing is social, right? Like, I mean, there's like kind of a crossover there as well as the editorial side. And some of them have minors in different areas, so they're interested in that kind of thing. But they are all about coming into your newsroom and helping you achieve a specific digital goal. So they can help you run new analytics reports and dissect them in a better way and understand them. They can help you launch an Instagram account that's going to be targeted towards a specific demographic, or work on an email newsletter template to like launch a new product that way. Redesigning websites so they're more navigable, right? In a week, they can't do everything, but they can at least move the ball forward, and then their job is to like leave you with stuff that will help you to continue. And then we like to send people back to the same places if we can to continue that work. So our digital natives, yeah. Bob?
The interesting thing about the digital native is that by definition, they're dealing with people that are significantly older, and they go from 10 to 15 years to 40 or 50 years. And what I was worried about when we started this program is that there might be a generational issue. There was no generational issue. I think one of the most gung-ho people is 70-something years old, and his digital native, and we're still talking on a regular basis. So I think that shocked me. The 20-year-old was coming in and making suggestions, and the other people were listening and gaining something. So it's been, I think, a huge success for us.
Well, I think, our students, they're humble. Like, you know, they don't come in and be like, I'm gonna solve your problems. Like, they know they don't have the answers to all the problems, but they do this one thing really well, which, as Bill astutely said, is reaching a younger demographic, right? They are that younger demographic. So instinctively, they know this is gonna work, this isn't. And they can provide some really cool insights. As part of this program, actually at WTOC in Savannah, we sent two digital natives down there actually last year, and they ended up going to a local high school and running a focus group of high schoolers and saying, okay, how do you use WTOC? Like, where do you see them? What do you do with it? What do you think about it? And these high schoolers were honest, which, you know, is fine and all, but good, right? Because that's your future audience. Those are the future business owners who are going to buy ads. These are right, like, so getting on the ground floor with establishing that kind of qualitative research is a cool thing they do as well. We do a lot of UX research, user experience research through digital natives, which is cool. The second thing that we do is we have, through GAB, every semester we're going to have an innovation fellow and an innovation team that partners with one of the broadcasters in the state. So what we did this last semester on kind of our first run, we had our innovation fellow, her name was Ashley. She went to Habersham Broadcasting up in Northeast Georgia, and she created a digital strategic plan for them for about 3 different products. And then she spent her time during the semester working on their Instagram because they really wanted to reach younger. It was My Country 93.3, I don't remember the last number. And they wanted to get younger listeners. Turns out they had this amazing podcast streaming app that actually even took requests on the app itself and sent them back into the station. And like nobody was pushing it. And Ashley, as a 21-year-old, was like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. We need to start talking about this on the Instagram. She was able to raise their followers by 33% in just the couple months that she was there. So really proud of the work that she did with them. Then we sent a journalism innovation team to Salem not Salem, the place, Salem Media Group. I always forget what it's called. Salem Media Group, I think. Yeah. So it's 104.7 The Fish out of Atlanta. And they did a bunch of UX research. So they felt like who is our audience, right? That was one of the things they wanted to know. So they studied who their audience was, made recommendations for each platform based on their audience, and then created a brand style guide to like streamline how everything looked across all their digital platforms, which was really useful because branding is a big deal with the younger generation, right? Like, you know, I mean, they want things to be seamless and slick in that way. So these are 2 options too, that our students can come into the newsroom and kind of work with what's going on. And then the last one is that through the GAB, I am offering fun little digital consulting conversations. And I'm going to be coming out with a digital consulting guide, hopefully by the end of the summer, that GAB members will have access to. And the idea is, I've already had a couple of these little quick 30-minute conversations with people. I'm just like, okay, so who are you? What are you doing? Right. So kind of working through the PAM, like one-on-one. What strategies have you tried? Hey, have you thought about this? And so these are really fun. This is the web link where you schedule one with me, and they're just fun. Honestly, I see one pop up on my calendar and I'm like, this is going to be a good day. We get to talk about digital strategy. So these are the 3 ways that I kind of want to help, and then have my students help to try to reach some of these goals. So I think I'm going to hand it back over to Bob. Yeah, but are there any questions or thoughts from those at home in the chat land or those in person?
If they still have questions, they can reach out to me or to Amanda herself.
That's true.
whatever works best.
I will totally answer questions.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amanda.
I hope it was helpful.
Go to the next one.
More than one. You want to be,
All right. Cool. I have to do a commercial before I get to my portion of the presentation, but I want to remind people that GabCon is coming up again in the fall in Atlanta at the same hotel we've been in the last couple of years, the Grand Hyatt. And we're very excited about the schedule, about the programs we're putting together, including we will be talking about digital. It happens to be where I met Dr. Bright last year, and she's become a very great resource for us. So we're hoping to have a great increase in attendance, the record number of Gabby Awards. So the Gabby, if there any indication, it's going to be a successful year for us, and we're looking forward to that. And the registration for that begins, I think, July 1st. But I want to just remind people, save the date, put it on your calendar, and we did pick a non-University of Georgia weekend.
There's only one bye week, you gotta go.
You got to find it, right? And it's right before Georgia, Florida. It's perfect time. It's true.
The only problem is that everybody else has figured that out too. So now you're competing with weddings and you're competing with the other opportunity to be doing something. So I'm going to just take a few minutes to talk about political sales, and then we're going to turn it over to the people who are really using it on a regular basis. But the thing that I like to start with first is if you could go out and find a perfect client, it would be a political candidate. And I'm going to kind of say why. First and foremost, they have one goal. They don't care about marketing. They don't care about branding. They don't care about one thing. They want to get people to come and vote for them. So it doesn't change from the governor to the dog catcher. Everybody in between has the same goal, and that makes the job as a salesperson easier. Secondly, the budgets may not be large, but they are available today. You're going to get paid cash in advance. And the money goes away on May 25th this year. And so therefore they have a desperate need to spend that money now, and they got to pay you now. Again, let me know how many clients you have like that in general, and certainly when you start combining it with the other things. The decision maker is easily available. We'll talk about why they're easily available in just a second when we get to the process of what to do, but I'll give you a tease, and that's that all you have to do is go to the sample ballot, and you've got every single candidate. And I believe in the last county we looked at, it was 70 different prospects that are out there, all with the same profile. All their information is available online right now. You can go out and you can find out, who they finance. I'm getting ahead of myself if I say who the decision makers are, but you find out how much money they actually have to spend, and also just what, are they for guns? Are they for abortion? Are they against abortion? Are they hot issues for local, or are they running more of a national or at least statewide type of approach to things? So there's just this information that you can get. They represent a new business category. I still think that's what most broadcast owners and managers are looking for, is new business. This is, again, the ultimate new business client. I think almost as important, they don't come with a bias. I only buy that station, or I only buy billboards, or I only buy radio, whatever it is. When they come to you, they don't have a bias in the same way. At the level we're talking about, they don't have agencies either. And I get a little snarky with my own way of saying it. They don't know any more about what they want than what we know. It's an equal level playing field, because they're really unsure of what they're doing. Their campaign manager said this, their opponent's doing that, their children tell them to do something different. And it all comes together, and they're trying to figure out how in the world, they're going to spend this little bit of money that they have. The candidate likely lives in your area. They know your station. They know your product. You don't have to spend a lot of time telling them about Channel 12 or the radio station that you represent or whatever. So they're all built in. In fact, in some cases with some local political stations, they might already advertise with you. They might be the car dealer. They might be an owner of a business and a law firm or something like that. So it's the perfect candidate. And if you took these 7, 8, 9 things that we're talking about, and you had 3 of them, you'd have a darn good client and a prospect. And in this case, you really kind of check almost every box. And that's why it's really important to be looking for the political people. Again, we're not talking about the ones that come to you regularly with your agency business. We want to talk now about the next step in the process is how to find these people. Just hit this button. Okay. I think I went back. No, I went twice. How do I get back?
It's very slow. It's tired.
It's working well.
Okay, so the process starts with get a sample ballot. It will tell you every single thing, what ballots are up. And again, when we're talking here, we're talking about city council, we're talking about judges, we're talking about sheriffs, we're talking about county officers. We're talking more down to that because those are the people that might still have money to spend. And those are also money that you could kind of maybe send your local salespeople out to talk to some of these people. When we first started this, it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was probably 4 weeks. I think we just mentioned that there seems to have been a little bit of surge of business that's just come in literally in the last couple days. But there's still another 2 weeks. And there's going to be runoffs, and there's going to be an election next fall. So we're trying to start to develop. And in full disclosure, the reason that I am as passionate as I am about trying to do this is we had to narrow it down to one thing. If we just went out and talked to people and say, do digital, it's this big rock. Amanda's done a good job of trying to break down the big rock, but then you got to figure out, well, what are we going to sell? We're going to talk about our sports. We're going to talk about our personalities. We're going to talk about all these various things, and it leads to some confusion. So with political, we're talking about one thing again, and that's what we're trying to do. And then if you can start building some better understanding of what what the digital process is all about, we think we're going to have a home run. So after you go to the sample ballot, you can then go to their political file or their campaign contribution disclosure report. And if you look at those, you will find out literally who the campaign manager is, who's the finance person, who's writing the check to you, and how much money they have. Have they spent all their money, or they, how many salespeople say, oh, maybe I can't, or clients rather say, I can't buy this month, but I'll come back next month. Well, you can go online and say how much money's in their funds before. They can't say that to you. First, they're not going to because the campaign's going to be over. But more as important, that that they might have $100,000 left. They might have $1 million left. They might have $10,000 left. But whatever the number is, it's posted and it has to be updated. I think literally within 24 hours, but certainly on a regular basis. So again, a huge advantage of knowing who they are and where they are and how much money they have. The third step, I think, a decision maker, and then I guess the final thing that we said a little bit more, especially when we're talking to radio, is you're competing for business against yard signs and direct mail pieces. I just got 3 direct mail pieces yesterday. I kept the one because it was for one of the candidates that I like, and I just kind of wanted to make sure I reminded my wife of that particular candidate. But the other 2 went right into the garbage can, which is what I think happens to 90% of the direct mail pieces. And they're expensive. There's the cost of creating one, there's the cost of mailing it, and it adds up to a big expense. But what we're really talking about is your product better than a yard sign? Because that's, again, where people spent a lot of their money, and probably now too late because the yard signs are out or whatever, but it costs a lot of money to do that, and that money should be ours. If there's a runoff, that should be our money next fall. And that, we also think of broadcasting or political as an even year thing, mainly every 4 years, but at least in Georgia, we're keep having these mammoth elections every 2 years. But the odd number of years, that's when the mayors are up, that's when the city councils are up. And those are the people that don't have the sophisticated Washington representation or rep firms and that type of stuff. So you got a much better chance of getting their business. So don't think of political as just an even year thing or really an every 4 year thing. It's really truly an every year thing with opportunities. I did it again. I know, that's what I did. Sorry about that.
It's just slow. It's okay.
Well, so is the operator. So it should have worked. It should have worked well together. So why is your station better than a yard sign? And I'm going to talk about that, and I'm also going to talk about the resources and or the unique selling advantages. And they do kind of come together here, and I apologize for that. But first and foremost is community presence. We are, and when you start talking about the television stations that we have either online or in the room, everybody knows who you are. And they know you because your personalities are well known. They know you because you're involved in community events throughout the year. They know you because they depend on you for your weather, and they really depend on you when there's a storm. We were just in Savannah, where unfortunately they had a storm that had fatalities with it. So and then what they're doing down there now after the storm to help rebuild the community, to bring volunteers in to do that, and to help people that are really in need. They're their viewers, they're their listeners, and we have that community presence, that community identification. When you get to a markets like that you're in with all your markets, I mean, people really, really depend on the products that you have in Swainsboro and Statesboro and Dublin and all the other markets that you're in. So it's a really great opportunity for to talk to the people that know who you are and want to have that establishment for you. The things that we're trying to sell, you've already got created content. If you just think back to the things that Amanda talked about that you already have, you have newsletters, you have different ways to participate, and all we have to do is start selling the things we're giving away right now, which is a big opportunity to make additional revenue. And the politicians really want some of that stuff, which we'll talk about. And then you have credible personalities. Again, we used to be live and local on radio all the time, but we still have at least on every station somebody that's extremely identified with the community and somebody that a politician would like to have the coattails of. When you start talking about a station that's doing 6-8 hours of news with news teams that are very familiar to them, that's tremendous credibility. Now, I'm not suggesting Richard Rogers is going to come in and talk to us for a few minutes about what he sees coming up in the next 2 weeks, or 2 weeks from, not even 2 weeks anymore. But those type of people have unbelievable credibility. When you think about how the people that your weather people that tell you about the weather every day, those people are like they're like your aunt and that type of thing. So only they're real and they're vetted and they're not going to be making up stories. So so it's really, really important to have that. I'm going to kind of skip over the next section because it's talking about the unique advantages, and many of them are the same thing that we just talked about. And I really want to get to KJ and Bill here in just a second. But I want to review, because Amanda talked about nearly all of these things, of what are the products that a candidate or any other I almost did it. Let me see if I get it. All right, go back. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Just hit the button once.
You gotta hit this button.
Okay. No, there should be one more slide. There's still one. Yeah, I'm like my daughter when she was little.
It's so pretty.
But just to kind of to wrap this up, the station resources that political candidates can take advantage of, or any of your digital candidates can, or prospects can take advantage of. First and foremost, I think, is the station newsletter or anything that creates an email list. We have a board member in a large market, Atlanta, that's producing $100,000 a month on their newsletter, on their mailing list, and that's how many people want to get a copy of who's on their mailing list. I'll give it away, but if I say who, but one's a religious station. So one of their stations is a religious station of people that love everything that's going on with that newsletter, and they want to be able to reach the people who are interested in that newsletter. The other 3 newsletters that do so well for them are all nationally syndicated politicals on another one of their stations. And at least right now, the political people really want to get a copy of that list because they're very likely to be the most likely to vote, either for them or against them, but they can try to persuade them. So the newsletter and the email is clearly an event that we already have, and we're finding that, do you charge for your newsletter? I mean, do you charge for that valuable audience that you have? The audience is, in most cases, likely isn't, and that's a real opportunity. Again, the station website, that's when you start getting into doing some of the things that might scare some of the people that aren't on the internet at all, when you start having to selling their spaces and different things like that. And Bill will get into a little bit more discussion of the website in just a second. Station events, either an event that you create or an event that you latch onto, like a parade, or other type of events that come up. Those are huge opportunities to have them. If you're hosting the 4th of July parade or Memorial Day event, and you can let the people that are also going to have a flag up and things like that, it's a great opportunity for them to be associated with your the place you're going to be already anyway. I used to have station remotes on here, but I guess remotes still haven't really come back since COVID. So there aren't as many things for that. Station social media, yes. Amanda explained a lot of the risk that goes with social media, but it's still where our viewers and listeners are. And with some hesitation, I still say social media is an important way to at least get your foot wet in doing these type of things. And then again, I already kind of talked about this, station participation in community events. So you've got this perfect client, you've got the perfect background for them, and you've got valuable resources, in many cases, things that we don't sell that are available. And I'm going to bring up KJ and Bill Main right now. I don't know if you're going to split your time, talk to each other, or how you want to do it. But I'll let KJ go first because Bill went first the last time. KJ is going to just tell you about, he owns about 8 or 9 radio stations. They're including the one in the market where I live.
He called me on Saturday and told me my weather wasn't very good. So yeah, I know he's listening. I know we had one listener on Saturday.
Well, he kept saying it's going to be sunny all afternoon, and these dark clouds were all over, and we were trying to take the boat out. So
We didn't say we were accurate. We're just, right. Got a hotline.
what, Gary?
It's a right foot.
No, he's going to do that.
All right, there we are.
Somebody will do it right.
I'm wearing the same outfit here in the shot that I'm wearing today. So I actually took this earlier today, just in time for this. That's right, yeah. Well, Bob, thanks for the introduction. KJ Allen, Oconee Communications, Oconee Radio Group, based in Athens. And just wanted to kind of, well, first of all, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Georgia Association of Broadcasters. I'm a proud board member of the radio side of the GAB. And really this event and what we've been doing with this road show is really the epitome of what we do at the GAB. It's getting broadcasters together. You know, we compete individually, and that's great. That's good for our audience. That's good for our advertisers. It's good for our product. But being able to come together like this and share ideas and have a conversation is really what the GAB is about. And we had a great trip up to Washington, D.C. a couple of months ago, advocating for broadcasters because, you know, even though we are competing against each other, our biggest competitors now, social media. These, you know, like you said, Dr. Bright, they're like 2 people that control the world, right? And they have an unfair advantage, and they're kind of in this wild, wild west. And they're advocating every single day of how to hold on to that unregulated, unbridled, wild, wild west, because they know that local radio and TV are their biggest threats. And we're very regulated. You know, we have to pay every September to be regulated. That's how great it is to be in broadcasting. You know, and meanwhile, and the TV people, you guys know how disproportionate it is with the content being provided to YouTube. You know, all this content is going to YouTube because that's where the audience is, and then broadcasters are getting pennies back in return. You know, it's a very imbalanced structure, but I just want all of you to know, we had a great trip to DC. It was the largest fly-in event that DC had since the pandemic. And it like freaked out, you know, the different members of Congress. They're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? There's like 500 people here. This is incredible. But it's that power in numbers, and we have a voice when we all come together. And it was just fun to be able, we met in one way or another with every single senator and representative except for like 1 or 2, but I'll leave their names out. But anyway, I just wanted to just say a couple of good, you know, things about the GAB, and we appreciate everybody that's online, here in person, and then watching this in demand. I was going to say good afternoon, but since we're online and on demand, this could be morning when you're viewing this. So anyway, thanks for joining us. But again, I'm here. We have one station in our group that does really well with political advertising, and then we have like 6 others in kind of okay. So we kind of have our own innovation lab at the Oconee Radio Group, not on purpose, but it gave me an opportunity to kind of compare that one radio station, single it out, and then look at the other stations in the group and say, you know, what can we do? What are we doing that's different on this one compared to the other ones? And how can we improve going forward? So I don't, you know, have anything wild and crazy here. A lot of this is stuff that we've talked about and we know is available, but it's stuff that we can integrate on air and digitally. So the 2 things that I hear the most on the station that's the most successful with political advertising is, one is we have a feature called Community Spotlight, and we interview people in the community You know, it could be an event coming up. Maybe it's the Main Street, the Better Hometown. It's now called the Main Street program. We'll bring them in, talk about an event coming up. It could be a World War II veteran. We have several of those that we've had on, which is really, really cool to hear those interviews. And they're kind of long form. This goes beyond reading a PSA, a 30-second deal or 60-second deal. They're a little bit more long form. But I hear so many people reference that program, including political people. You know, they're like, hey, you know, I've got to be on your station because that's where Community Spotlight is. You know, it's almost like that station is a legal organ of the county. We just sort of created that just out of thin air. Not really out of thin air. It took about 30 years to do it, but it has that feel to it. We get political advertisers that come in, and it's the first check out of their check. It's like check number 101. It's to the radio station. They go open the account at the bank and then come to the radio station to buy the ads. You know, sometimes the temporary checks with their name on it. We want to make sure it clears, of course, but you know, it's pretty cool to see that they come to the radio station because they know it's a community gathering place, basically. So that's one of the things we hear. Number two is the political forums. And I know Dr. Bright has had great success with that at the Echo in Oglethorpe County with bringing that to the print form and to the digital side of these local races. I mean, we're going to get the presidential races in 2 years. You know, who knows who's going to run, but we're going to see them, and it's probably going to be interesting to watch. But when you get down to the local level, where do those people go? And we want them to come to us and to be able to distribute that. And this comes back to the digital side. You know, some of you may be listening to this and say, well, you know, I can't do a 2-hour political forum and the dog catcher and the mayor and all that. I mean, I got a music intensive station. What am I going to do? Well, you know the answer, right? It's digital. Let's just start right there. You know, if you're just now starting with digital, that would be a good gateway to get started and putting that content that's exclusive. Zuckerberg doesn't have access to it. Elon doesn't have access to it. We have access to it, right? So it's there, and it starts. If your radio station is not that legal organ, if it doesn't have that feel, this is the way to get started of doing that. And Bill's going to speak in just a moment. They've had a very long track record, and I'm a big fan of the Access WDUN product. And I've told Bill I've been looking at that site since 1996 when it was on dial-up. So they you know, it's a long track record where they have learned some tips and tricks along the way. So what you'll see with that website, you know, to me is just the pinnacle of how good local broadcasters can do digitally, even in small markets. You know, Gainesville's it's not Atlanta, it's not a TV market, it is a radio market, and they have taken the power of that over to the digital in such an exceptional way. So I know you all will look forward to hearing from that. But those are our two elements. So, you know, on the forums, we're pretty good at doing those forums on the air and then putting them out on demand digitally. We could do better, but we do what we can. And I wish John Clark, our chairman of the GAB, he was unable to make it here, and he wanted to send his hello to everybody. But he did a great service for local radio by putting up the governor's debate and also the congressional districts and lieutenant governor, secretary of state. He made that available for the radio stations. And I know that was also broadcast on television stations as well throughout the state, but it made it very easy for broadcasters to be able to bring up the GNN feed and be able to put that over the air. So I would just encourage, if you have that ability, you have a station that is conducive for that kind of programming and it's there, you know, do it. Go with it, because that's what ties us in with our local communities. And if you have a station that maybe not, digital, because you just can't lose. You're not going to offend anyone by putting up something local, a political forum there. If they don't want to hear it, they don't download it, right? But if they do, it's there and it's available for them, and they're going to remember your radio station for providing that. So those are the two items that I had. Again, it's not earth-shattering stuff, but it's kind of, you know, when I looked at that station compared to the other, those were two things that really stuck out and things that I hear from our advertisers. So, Bill, I'll send it over to you. Bill Main of WDUN, Jacobs Media. Technical difficulties, please stand by.
No difficulties. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, leave right there.
Oh, just leave it right
I
there?
want to do that one. I don't want to do the other one. I can change the slide back.
Okay. I want to start with something we were talking. I'm going to show you the news website. We have two sites that we maintain. One of them more actively than others. The Access WDUN product, which is constantly updated all day long, 24/7, live and automated. But I wanted to show you something that we're also doing. When we talk about being part of the community, we're involved in the community, and we can only talk about it so much on the air. So we have to find other ways to get that out, to let people know what we're doing. And one of the things that we're doing is, and when it comes back around, I'll go there. Let me find my little thing. Come on, get there, baby. One of the things we've done with one of our programs, it's called, we have a program on the weekends called Home Matters. And we're doing a thing on Home Matters called House Calls. If I can get it together, there we go. Yeah, so what we've done with House Calls is, and video is going to start playing automatically. But with House Calls, what we've done is we've gotten involved with the community where we've tied in with some of the local representatives on the city council and with Habitat for Humanity. And we're looking for people who need home repairs like we describe on the show every Saturday morning for 2 hours, but can't afford to do it in the standpoint of safety and quality of life. And the video we're showing right now is, we talk with a lot of our folks that are on the program, that appear on the program all the time, and not a single one of them said no when we asked, would you be able to donate goods, time, service? So what you're seeing on the video there, just real quick here, it's kind of diversion from what we're talking about. What you're seeing on the video is this guy, Chris Earls, who has a roofing company. He's been in business for about 2 or 3 years on his own. And he said this woman had a hole in her roof. It was horrible. Her bedroom, she couldn't even sleep in her bedroom because the water was constantly coming in. She's got mold issues, she's got all sorts of issues. Chris went there one Saturday and replaced the entire roof. His crew said they didn't want to be paid for it. We have electrical that's gone in since then. We have plumbing that's gone in since then. We have a kitchen remodel that's underway. We're working on the appliance line of it, but we have a designer who's reconfigured the kitchen to make it more efficient. But this is something we talk about on the air, but we direct them to the website, and we direct them to the website with our social media posts as well, with Instagram Reels in this case, and some Facebook. So that's just one of the products that we do, and that's something I just wanted to share that with you because, well, number one, we're sinfully proud of it. I think is the word that you use, but it's another way that we're, as you talk about being part of the community, it's another way that we can be part of the community, but we can't represent that as well on the air. So it gives us another way to do something that television's been able to do forever. Pictures, moving pictures. It's been real well to do that. But just speaking from a radio standpoint, this is Access WDUN, and boy, does it move weird now. Wow, it just jumped all the way down to the bottom of the page. How did I do that? That's it. It's all about taking care of you, Bob. Let's see. Can we get back up there? Man, it's just jumping around. Let's do this. Yes, there we go. I need to get back to the top. There you go. All right, okay. That's good. So the page is updated automatically in part, but a lot of it is done by our people who work 24/7 like your people do here. And you see the top stories show up first, and then they scroll onto the other side, and it just that's just all the news stories. But then you get down to this part, and we've got it sectioned out by local, and we've got it, and you see Scott Gibbs for state senate. Scott Gibbs bought on air and he bought digital as well, because when we go out to sell it, we sell both at the same time, and we try to tell them. And of course, you see, you've also got Derek for State House. I gotta be honest with you, I don't know much about this guy, Derek McCullum, but he's buying both as well. He's just not buying enough because I haven't heard his ad ad nauseum. I can tell you in the morning, because I do the morning show, I would say right now about 60% of our advertising in the morning is digital, is not digital, but political. And we are currently sold out, which is something I never want to be able to tell the sales staff. They don't like to hear that, neither do I. But one of the things that we've done as far as
that's concerned in digital, which is something that, and KJ brought this up, there are different things that you can create that you can't represent as well on the air that you can digitally, and you can also monetize. Election 2022 voter guide is presented by Sphere and Staffing and Recruiting. And so we've sold the sponsorship for that. But this is everybody that's running in every race that you can think of. And this is, in our area, we cover 10 counties. So you've got the Senate races, which are, of course, on the state level. But as you get on down here, you get all the 6th district. You get on down to the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, which all fall into our territory. Well, not the 8th, but the 9th does. 10th district as well. And all of this information we put up there, and we link to all of their websites and their information so that people come to us to get their election information. So, and of course, we monetize that because when we hit the page, obviously they see the advertising. But yeah, we got a house ad running there. We need to do something about that. But this is what we're doing with our website. We've had the website for over 20 years, and the first 10 years, it's a bucket of red ink that we had to buy to keep it running. But the past 10 years, it's been black, and it doesn't do quite half what the station does, but it's getting closer. And every year, what we earn off of this increases constantly. But it's all because of what Amanda says. A majority of the information, even though the AP stories are automated, we still kind of control what we want, what we show up there. But 90% of it is what we create locally. And that's what makes it work. That's why we have the 50 million, 52 million page views in a year, because we're keeping it local. We're trying to add video. We do have a video component. We actually have a video journalist, I guess multimedia journalist is what you call them now. Yeah, there you go. I'm having to learn the lingo on that one. I've got 2 of those, although one of them is now only working part-time in that regard because she's crossed over to the dark side. She's in sales. So she's transitioning out. Lauren is transitioning out of that. So I'm looking to hire another one. If you have people that you want to eject and send my way, I'd love to have them come up and work. But that's what we're doing. But it's all, we embrace the digital. I was talking with Bob before we got here. I've got a guy that works for me who runs a lot of what goes on with content creation and the backside of Access, Mitch Clark. He was a newspaper man forever. He moved over to the good side of the world and got into broadcasting with us, and has been running this because he sees it as an online newspaper, so he's got a lot of background in it. But as he pointed out, when he got to the Times in Gainesville, when he got there, they didn't have a website, but everybody else was having one. And of course, we had ours well before they did. And he was, and his words, acrimonious that they didn't have something. But a lot of papers that didn't embrace it are gone. And you know that in television, that you guys have done a great job of getting your content over there. But it's, for us, it's getting it on the web, but then also, we call it the circle of life. We've got a radio station, we've got a website, and then we've got social media. And everything we do has to keep going in that circle. So one points to the other, which points you back to the other, which points you. So you keep going, and that's what we try to do with all of our components. We had a forum, 9th district candidates, all 4, it was 5. You didn't hear that story. Somebody's qualifying check bounced twice. Yeah, they frown on that. So he was not there. But we had a forum the other day at Brenau University, and we broadcast it. We've got it on video. And of course, we allowed people to come for free and attend it. And it was very interesting, very educational. But that's another thing that we do, and we monetize that as well. So just, I don't want to tell you other than if you're not there, get there and realize that you've already got the content like KJ was talking about. We already had people writing news stories. Now we had to kind of re-educate them into the fact that you need to take more pictures when you go to the city council meetings, and when you talk to people, you need to take more pictures. And that's how we got started. And from there, we've just grown it by getting our digital assets together, especially with video, adding the video components. But you've already got this material. You just got to repurpose it. So for my radio friends that are out there that may be listening to this, get into it. Don't be afraid of it. Wade in, because just like the newspaper people, you might find yourself shutting the door. And the one thing that we never want to hear in broadcast is somebody going dark. And unfortunately, I know of a couple of people right now that are looking at doing that. I've got a saying at work, and I've said this to our team over and over again. things are going to change. The only thing constant is change. That's cliche. We know that. But I put it in these terms. You can either be washed away by the wave of technology and the changes, or you can surf. I prefer to surf because getting spat on the beach is not my thing. So if you're not into it, find a way to start. And your gateway drug is
That's right.
Dr. Bright in their students, because we had Laura came and did a great job for us, and we didn't know until she got there that actually her folks own an agency that we do business with. So
Funny.
we kept saying her name. It was like, Anna kept going, man, that looks like a familiar name. Why is that so familiar? It's because we get an agent, and then a check actually came in the mail. It's like, oh, okay, same people, but yeah. But she did a great job getting us more in a direction, and now we're not fully enacting the plan, but we're trying. We're just trying, baby steps. But if you're not there, you need to be there, because if you're not there, you're gonna be left behind. Surf. That's it. That's all I got. But you got the assets. Just repurpose what you got. If you got anybody that wants to work for us, I got a full-time cover.
Well, I think we asked Richard about quarter tons. So there's something we can. Okay, great, thank you. And while we're
You also have paywalls on your website, right? It's just wide open.
Yeah.
That is one thing that we may want to start talking about more. Is that all broadcast websites that I know of are wide open. And paywalls are problematic for lots of reasons. But if you're not selling display, right? Paywall is a really nice source of tiered income, and it creates subscription viability. And that's what newspapers do, right? So I mean, newspapers are really into paywalls. I hate our paywall right now for lots of reasons. But metered paywalls versus tiered paywalls, there's lots of models to monetize digital products.
We've just seen how it's done with our newspaper competitor. It's paywall, and they're a very small staff, and it keeps getting smaller, and we just never charge about to become better by doing that.
Yeah.
We sell by impressions, so, whereas we used to sell 500,000 impressions, now our minimum that we recommend is 1 million.
So you can just do more on the advertising side.
Right, because we know we guarantee we're going to
Yeah.
they're going to deliver.
hello, Richard.
How's everybody?
Good,
to see you
thanks.
again.
I'll just say briefly to welcome you to coming by. And how many years have you been at the station?
Well, this fall will be 30. It's ridiculous. I know. It's absurd, but here I am.
But when we were talking earlier, you're a perfect example of what we're suggesting is the credibility of our stations. I'm sure that you run into us at church and at different places where people just look at you and say, maybe they talk to you directly or whatever, but it's invaluable. And it's something that broadcasters have, and we just need to take advantage of. So we also have this election coming up, and
Yeah.
no one's an expert, no one can make these predictions, but we just kind of want to hear what you're hearing and what you're thinking is going on. So we'll turn it over to you and say
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Glad to be here with you. I'm glad you're here in our station. We are so proud of this place. You've probably heard this before, but our building in North Augusta was state of the art in the 1950s. So here we are. And we still pinch ourselves. We can't believe we're here. I just want to start off by, and I'm preaching to the choir, I know, but I just think when it comes to politics, I'm really old school. When it comes to opinions, I just think you have to leave opinions at home. We can't bring them with us to work, and I know a lot of you in your markets might have younger anchors or reporters working with you. I just need them to know what it was like before the Fox and CNN culture pulled us to the left and pulled us to the right. We have to think about, these people don't realize what it was like before all that division. So for me, it means no sign in my yard for a campaign, no bumper sticker on my car. Just a couple of months ago, somebody came to the front door asking me to sign a petition for a big story happening next to our neighborhood, and we ended up covering it as a news story. I could not sign that petition. I felt a certain way about it, but I wasn't going to put my name there and have the developer go, oh, look, Rogers from the Channel 12 feels this way about my story. Am I going to get fair coverage on that? So, you have to really not do that. You have to step back from all that. But I don't know if you've noticed this, over on CNBC, Shepard Smith launched a new newscast in prime time. When I get home for my dinner break, it's on, so I watch it. And I think Shepard's great, but what I love is this. He actually says at the end of the newscast, no opinions, no panels, no pundits. And I want to stand up and cheer. I think somewhere Cronkite and Murrow are high-fiving that this is actually a new concept that's coming back again. But I love it. But unfortunately, things are not going great in the ratings. He's not doing that well yet. I hope it catches on. I hope people realize there's value in middle of the road reporting where you're not going to hear people shouting at each other on the news. And I think there's enough of that on CNN and Fox. But politically speaking, I don't think they've done us any favors, pulling our audience to the left, pulling our audience to the right. Somehow local news has and manages to navigate this. And I think a lot of times it's because people know who we are. They go to church with us, they go to school with us, and they trust us. And somehow we have to, build on that. But it is a daily challenge. I mean, we get our scripts from CNN and from CBS and from NBC just in this building, and there might be an anchor lead in I'm just not comfortable with. I told one producer who wrote something ridiculous. I said, imagine at the time, imagine Scott Pelley saying this. And then I said, our standards are higher than that. Don't make me say stuff like that. I'm not going to, I have to live with these people. They may never meet Scott Pelley, but I'm not saying that. So it really is a daily filtering process for your scripts to get to your audience. And we have to guard against that, because at the end of the day, our only currency is our credibility. Really, that's all we have that they're trying to take away from us. And not to get too political, but it really ticked me off personally when Mr. Trump pointed to the back row and said, see all those people back there? Journalists doing their jobs. He painted us all with one broad stroke. And I don't think that helped our credibility. I think it put us at odds with viewers where we'd never been before. And it was an uncomfortable place. And I think we're still digging out from that, trying to earn trust. And, now with social media, we hear from people on every story we do, which is good or bad, depending on how you feel. Back in the old Savannah days, when I started off, the gripe in the newsroom, they should have a telephone or a television, but not both. In other words, we don't want to hear from you, but now we hear from them all the time. Some people think the streaming platforms are our enemy, but I think bias is really our enemy, and we have to weed it out every day. I think when it comes to streaming platforms, we can be everywhere our viewers are. We can be on every platform you want to name, but we have to have our credibility. But let's talk about Georgia really quickly. As you know, Georgia is one of those states where President Trump is on the ballot in so many ways. From the governor's race all the way down. He was not, this may come as a surprise, he was not happy about losing Georgia. No. And he's still not convinced that he did lose Georgia. And that's where we are. He blames two people, our governor and our Secretary of State, who both happen to be on the ballot. So it's the perfect storm right now for testing Trump in Georgia. Just a few weeks ago, Gray Television hosted a debate statewide with all of our partners. WTOC had it in their studio with a couple of media representatives in-house and their moderator and the candidates. But I was remote here in Augusta. We had anchors in Columbus, Albany, the Tallahassee, Thomasville market. We rehearsed for 3 days to get all the bugs out because there were a lot of bugs to get out to wire us all together. We had our questions worked out. I was going to try to get in 3. When the candidates hit the air that night, we were lucky to get 1 question in. And I was lucky to get that. It was after a whole half hour of arguing back and forth, I finally got around to my question. And I say all that to say this: the candidates went after each other, and they're doing it on the airwaves. They're doing it on your airwaves as well. They didn't need a media panel. We were just secondary. It didn't matter what we asked. They were going to take it and use it to attack the other. And that's where I think things get off the rails. If you ever do a debate in your market, the rule we had was if one candidate attacks another in the answer, that candidate has the right to reply. Well, guess what happened on every single question? So it went, one question would go 15 minutes with them attacking each other. So I think the answer to all that would be the moderator or the media panelist saying, I need a follow-up. You didn't answer my question. If you want, do another shot at answering this question, and hold their feet to the fire. And what I like to do as a reporter, I like the shortest question possible. I think it holds the candidate's feet to the fire. If you ask a very short question, my eyes start to roll, and yours do too. When you hear a reporter asking a question that goes a minute and a half, and then the candidate, he should say, if he doesn't, what was the question again? Because it makes the reporter look like an idiot. Don't ask the long question. But my question was just this: do you think Donald Trump broke the law in trying to interfere with the election in Georgia? And it was funny because before we could even punch up Senator Perdue on camera, I heard him say off camera, hell no, he didn't. So that was his answer right off the bat. When it came around to the governor answering the same question, he never did, because I really wanted to hear his answer to that. That was the question that mattered to him. Do you think President Trump broke the law? And he never did answer, because the attacks happened, and it all got diffused. Also interesting, I think, that this Republican primary is bloody and expensive in all of our markets. You see a few ads for Stacey Abrams, but right now she doesn't have to do a thing. She's sitting back watching them spend their money and bloody each other up. If you haven't seen the WSB debate, the GPTV debate, or our debate, they're all up online. You can watch what I mean, but they just go at each other, and it'll be interesting to see how this works out. I think the polling has Governor Kemp leading. You probably have heard the same thing. So the Trump factor may not actually play out in his favor in our market. Let's talk about Secretary of State real briefly. 9 candidates in that race, 5 Democrats, 4 Republicans. Of course, Trump has endorsed Jody Hice. He's a U.S. representative from this area. He says the election was stolen. The president likes that language. He endorsed him. Brad Raffensperger, you all know, he is the single reason Donald Trump was forced to move out of the White House, according to Donald Trump. So he hates Raffensperger, who is here in Augusta on Monday, by the way. He spoke to the Rotary Club here. And I tried to live tweet that, but he speaks so quickly, it's hard to keep up with him. I should have just live streamed it from my phone. If I thought the audio was good, I could have just done that. But I think it'll be interesting to see if he can hold on to that seat after being in such a hot seat with the president. If no candidate gets the majority, more than 50% plus 1, the top 2 vote getters go to a runoff. So we may see the Secretary of State's race go to a runoff. Of course, Donald Trump has endorsed candidates in a lot of states, not just Georgia, with mixed results. I've seen him win some and lose some, but we'll find out in just a couple of weeks how he does here. The Georgia will be a real test of his influence, but you guys probably know your markets a lot better than I do. I won't mention all the other races, but I think he's endorsed people up and down the ticket, but I just wanted to stick with Governor and Secretary of State for our purposes. But I'd be happy to hear your comments or questions about how you're covering this madness. Yes, sir.
I only have a question that's more informed than anything else. We're talking about your debates that you're doing. What sort of rules did you set for candidates? We just did a town hall with the 9th district congressional race. With all 4 candidates, we did it in an hour, and we limited. You got a minute to respond to the question, and then if you mentioned your opponent or someone else, they got 30 seconds to respond.
Right.
And we told them all up front, your opponent will get 30 seconds to come back and get last tag. None of them mentioned anybody else. That kind of kept doing that.
Right.
So that worked fairly well for us. Now I realize different on the stage that you on. How do you do it?
Savannah came up with the rules and announced them beforehand. I'm not even sure if that was actually part of the early part of the program. I should go back and watch it. But I do know the thing that was a real hang up was if you mentioned another candidate, they could come back, and it went into infinity because of that. That's very smart. We also, I know there were limits on the opening statements and the response, but I didn't hear any bells. I didn't hear anybody cutting someone off. Mike down at WTOC tried his best to get in there, but you know how moderators just get, unless you cut their microphones, you're not going to have any control of it over the debate.
We took a separate screen put on the stage where they could all see that monitor.
A big counter?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
And I only had 2 people that had to ring the bell on.
Oh, that's, what market are you?
We're Gainesville.
Okay, okay, that Gainesville.
Yeah, so Gainesville.
Yes.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that
I get
Gainesville.
that all the time.
Oh.
I'm like, no.
Friend or foe? Yeah, no. Okay, so that works for you, and that's.
Yeah, and that I was one of the things that's interesting because these guys have appeared all over the place doing this in other places. And we stuck that out there, and to a person, they were like, "Oh, thank goodness you got that. That's great." And these guys could be in radio, a couple of them, because they would look at it. And I could tell they were looking at it because get right down to the end of opening statements, the last 5 seconds, and gave their website. And you can see me at www or whatever it was, boom.
Like an internal clock was in their head.
But they were looking at it. They were counting.
Well, the clock, I like the countdown clock a lot, and I've seen them do red, yellow, green lights and that kind of thing too. Years ago, I covered a presidential debate at Wake Forest, and it was crazy. But I remember thinking, I was up in the balcony. I wasn't having to do anything with it, but I was thinking, this is how we elect a president in this country? It just seemed so messy, and you leave there kind of like you need to wash your hands or take a shower. It just felt bad. But this Republican race for governor, with the Democrat having no challenger, is really an eye opener. And I don't know if we've seen anything like it in a long time where the incumbent actually has a challenger. But anybody else have any questions or comments about?
Go back and might be started in the question, but talking about the difference between use of Fox and CNN, and I think it tainted us. But I feel that maybe that has stopped. But tell me, like when it comes out of the same box, they switch from watching RDW to watching CNN or vice versa or something like that. Do you feel it's getting any better? Because I feel it is, but maybe not.
I think it is. I do think it is. Now it might ramp up more with this presidential campaign, and we might be right back where we started. But I feel like somehow Ukraine has sort of shifted the whole landscape, and now we're focused on covering a war. And I know that there's going to be political differences in what we're doing and whether it's succeeding. But remember, I mean, everything was political. What we were doing on the southern border was political. The weather was political. Is global warming a thing? I mean, we managed to, in Georgia, we managed to politicize sports for the All-Star game in Atlanta. So, I mean, that was a very frustrating time, to be in journalism and to see everything that could possibly be divided getting divided. But I do agree. I think for whatever reason, I feel like things are moderating a little bit, and I hope that's the case. And maybe it's the fact that people are saying out loud, no pundits, no opinions. If we drill that into our viewers enough, they realize what they're getting. There's a great saying I like to repeat, that the more faces you see on the screen, the farther it is away from news. Because there's no way that we're staying close to the middle if you see 6 boxes on the screen and everybody's got an opinion. But opinions are like belly buttons, they say. Have you heard? There may be a different version.
Yeah. You just led me to another question. There's nothing but opinions on Fox and CNN, but it seemed to me that in fact, I finally went to one of Amanda's fellow professors at UGA and said, "Are you still teaching betting? Are you still teaching that if you tell one side of the story, you have to tell the other side of the story?"
Balance,
And most importantly, I don't think that opinions have any place in your newscast. And facts-based opinions, that's different. But just I'm wondering if you could.
I absolutely agree with that. We've never done editorial since I've been here, and luckily I don't anchor that one. Luckily I don't anchor that one. We don't do editorials, never have. It's funny, when I grew up in Brunswick, and we were right there between 2 TV markets, Savannah and Jacksonville. And the leading station in Jacksonville did editorials. And I remember hearing their anchors. Actually, the anchors would toss to, I think, the general manager who spoke for WJXT. And he would say his bit. And the thing that was always funny to me is that the audio they ran after every editorial was, WJXT invites the presentation of contrasting points of view. I thought, that's the most boring. It's like, don't bother. Every now and then you'd see them air a contrasting point of view from the community. But what was that?
Johnny Carson played Turbo.
Yeah, you would get that occasionally, but for the most part, they would just like put up a stiff arm, like this is the opinion we're going to go with. But we haven't done that. The closest thing we did a Talk to 12 years ago, and I would get emails back in the email day. I would respond to something and answer a viewer question, that type thing, but that's the closest we came. Now, the big bump in the road and the big red flag you have to avoid is when the producer puts after a story ad lib. Well, some stories you don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole, and they allow us the room to say, this is not a place where my co-anchor and I want to ad lib on this, this Supreme Court abortion issue. This is not where I want to plant my flag. This is not where we want to stretch the newscast. I mean, I don't want to step into that kind of quicksand. What'd you say?
I want to stretch the break.
Yeah, right. We'll be right back. So I think it's up to us to watch out for those points. There's some places where I wish we could ad lib. I say, I wish we had a two-shot right there. We could talk about that story. But there are other stories clearly we need to avoid that are political like that. But that's what we have to be careful about is ad libbing during the newscast. And that's every day, every show, and I try to look through my scripts, looking for those landmines where a producer expects us to ad lib. That's a good one. That's a good one to talk about. Yeah, we try to be opinion free. Anybody?
One other
Yes.
quick thing. So I love what you said about journal. I teach journalism.
Thank you.
And I that is absolutely all that we're talking to our students about. They're consuming content that doesn't look like that, right? That looks like opinion. So it's so hard because so much of what they consume as media is not good journalism.
Mhm.
I'm curious your thoughts because what you said is absolutely true. The culture around debate and even forums is toxic
Mhm.
and actually preventative to any kind of constructive discussion. Should we be having these conversations one-on-one with candidates? Should we be doing more things separate? I understand it's not as sexy or grudge matchy, right, when they're in the room. But I don't know if you all have experimented with one-on-one
Just a one-on-one.
conversations in order to depress some of that.
I think there is value in that. Senator Perdue offered up early on when he first announced, we thought that was newsworthy enough to have him on by himself. And I was able to ask him 5 or 6 questions unfiltered, and I liked being able to do that. We stuck it on our website as a one-on-one. I do a franchise called One-on-One every week where we just pull someone in the studio for that very reason. It could be anyone. It could be a newsmaker. It could be a community member you've never heard of. But there's just that value in that simple, straightforward conversation. Remember Charlie Rose late at night before Charlie ran into all his trouble? I thought there was value in sitting across the table from someone and speaking like that. And I like that. But I also, there's a little part of me that when these two candidates were going at each other, I was learning a lot about each one in what they had to say to each other, even though it was a messy thing, just to hear their points and counterpoints in real time. So there, as much as we shake our heads, there might be some light in all of that smoke, going back and forth. So maybe there's still some value in it, even if it's off the rails. There was one debate years ago, and I don't even know if this is before YouTube. That's how long ago I might have heard this story. But you're talking about rules for debate. They brought the candidates in, they set them down. It was live, and the moderator said, "Gentlemen, there are no rules. You start the debate when you're ready." I mean, who starts first? What do you? And it was absolutely it was a free flowing. I don't know how it went from there, but I thought, what a shock to the candidates to be sitting across the table from each other with no rules and the live camera just right there. So I thought that was an interesting extreme that I haven't heard of it happening again. It must not have been great, but I think the first 5 minutes sound fascinating. What are we going to do? How are we going to construct this?
One change of pace. We were talking about digital before we talked about political. We did ask you to talk about political. I think it's been great. But can you just talk a little bit as kind of a close that how your job has changed since digital has come along and some of the things that you're having to do and what are the toughest and what are you enjoying?
Digital has been a real eye-opener for all of us. Early on, anchors and reporters were all, we were all complaining, to tell you the truth, because digital was a new thing to do. We have a newscast to worry about. That was the old way of thinking. We have a newscast to worry about. We have a digital team now. Someone's always on digital, feeding our stories into digital. So that colors my opinion a little bit. We are able to, there are no deadlines anymore. Deadline is now. And the old thing going in the back of your mind was like, gosh, do I tweet this? Do I want the competition to know it? Have I won it if I tweet it or put it on Facebook first? Is that still my get? So there's going to be that debate on every story, what you put out there. But we have a strong, and that's one of the first things I check every day is our own website to find out. And there's also a blue screen in our newsroom. If you've been down that way, we get to see what's hot on the website, and that steers our producers. Look at this. Is this top story on our website in any newscast? Are we telling people on the air about this? I think yesterday it was the tax refunds coming to Georgians. Boom, it shot to the top because people love their money. And it was like when everything else had 20, 30, 35, 40 viewers, it had like a couple of hundred. And so that steered our editorial thinking of all of a sudden Webb was instructing us on what to put on the air. So I think there's a huge value in it. Obviously, we could never go back now, and I wouldn't want to, but Facebook Live has been a huge thing for us. Our weather folks at night are able to do a quick Facebook Live between newscasts and tell people what's happening in deeper form with the weather, what's going on. If there's severe weather, like we had hail last week, our weather guys were live from out here with hail bouncing all around them. It's just a quick tool to connect with the audience live, whether it's on our website or on Facebook Live. But we're big fans now. We were slow converts early on. It was newscast first. And you do still have to put the newscast first. At some point, your deadline's there. You've got to go on the air. Now, the thing I hate most as an anchor is a cold read off a teleprompter. I mean, nothing against our producers. Oh my God. I don't like looking up and not knowing what that story is. I don't want to read at the same time you hear it. And I love our producers, but some of them are right out of UGA and USC. And there might be, it's so strange when you leave the word not out of a sentence, how that changes the sentence dramatically. You know, that's just one little word. And sometimes I'll say, did you leave a not out of page 17? Read that again for me. I don't want to discover that on the air and look like I'm having a seizure. The anchor man is not doing well. So I try to go through all the scripts and, you know, and not be surprised by anything on the air. Breaking news still happens. We still get surprises on breaking news, but you have to explain that we're, you know, this is coming into we're asking for a little bit of forgiveness on breaking news. We're all learning this at the same time. And sometimes I'll say, we're all seeing these live pictures at the same time. It's just coming in. I'm seeing it at the same time you are. If you walk your viewers through that, I think they're comfortable with that and forgiving of any mistakes we might make. But yeah, to get back to your question, we're all about it. And yeah, the deadline is as soon as you can get it posted now with the social media stuff and the website. So things have changed a lot since I walked in the door. I mean, my first station in Savannah, we were shooting 3/4 inch tape. And before that, before my time, they were talking about how hard film was to process and edit. A nightmare I never want to think about, but it's so quick now. It's so easy to get something on television, but the danger is it's so quick now. So we do have to try to be careful as we do what we do, but thanks for your time. I'm glad you guys are in our building, and I'm glad to spend some time with you.
Thank you.
Yes, glad to help out. Yeah, make yourself at home and come see us down the hallway if you haven't already.